How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame, and we are back with an FPL video. And today, you notice I didn't say preseason FPL video. We are back with another FPL video. It's the start of game week 1. We're less than a week away from having to lock in your teams for game week 1. And we're going to be reviewing mock drafts as well today. And it's going to be fantastic. We have 5 on order for you. We're going to see all different formations, all different types of strategies, potentially going into game week 1. If you haven't done so already, make sure to give us a follow over on Twitter and Twitch. We're going to be doing a team reveal on Friday on Twitch, as well as we're going to be doing a deadline stream, so we're going to have to get up real early for that one, as well as make sure to subscribe to the channel here as well. A lot of FPL content coming this week, as well as in the weeks to come across the entire season. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first team we have here is a 4-3-3. It is 100 million in squad value. There is 0 money in the bank, and we see that we have, a pretty solid team. You got McCarthy in goal. You have double Liverpool defense. You have a great home fixture to start off with. We got the newly placed Doherty in at Spurs. We have Vinagre as our cheap defender, as well as Taylor on the bench from Burnley that we can rotate in and out depending on how good the fixtures are. We have the 2 premium midfielders in Aubameyang and Salah, which we can choose to captain. And then we have a pretty strong front 3 with a cheaper forward in Mitrovic. And then we have Werner and Ings up top with Souček as our cheaper midfielder. Now, the only problem that we have is that we have 2 non-playing midfielders, which can pose somewhat of a problem in terms of trying to get more expensive midfielders and widening our midfield, because at the moment we technically only have 3 real playing midfielders. Yes, Reed does start for Fulham, and Gordon will potentially see some minutes, but more than not, we're probably only going to have 3 real midfielders that we're going to want to choose from in Souček, in Aubameyang, and in Mohamed Salah. Now, that being said, we could potentially downgrade Taylor to the likes of Mitchell or Ferguson from Crystal Palace to get a 4 million playing defender, and then swap out Souček for someone like St. Maximin from Newcastle or Armstrong from Southampton, and you can then have a bit more of a diverse midfield in there, and so that they're a bit more reliable and have a bit better fixtures, because Souček, after the first game or 2, his fixtures aren't all that, and he's probably not going to be picking you up more than 2 points a game. That being said, though, it's a pretty strong team on paper. It's very good game week 1. The only problem is that there's no money left over in the bank. So if we wanted to get United or Manchester City assets, we would have to downgrade elsewhere. So if I wanted to get Martial in, for example, I couldn't go from Ings to Martial unless I took the likes of, let's say, Taylor and made him a 4 million defender, or spread the funds elsewhere. And we kind of want to be looking at some midfielders. Kai Havertz, he was just recently priced at 8.5, so you have to have a decision of him or Pulisic, who are both at 8.5. Ziyech is in there at 8 million. Rashford is in at 9.5. Bruno Fernandes 10.5. Yes, the City mid we can get in by swapping out Aubameyang potentially in game week 3. And Salah just seems to be a mainstay in most people's teams, and is probably going to be something that we keep, for the time being. And also, we don't have the flexibility of potentially, bringing in the likes of, Ryan Brewster as a 4.5 million forward that could potentially play for another team. He's been rumored to be loaned out this season, and if we had to potentially get him, we couldn't, because we have Robertson and Trent and Salah in our team as well, which would then open up more money. So let's say if we even dropped Mitrovic, 4.5, that's still 1.5 extra that we can put in. We can put that into Souček. We can put that into one of our non-playing midfielders on our bench. There's a bunch of different things that we can do there. So this team on paper seems quite solid to start game week 1, but once you start thinking about Manchester United, Manchester City, you can see there's a bit of flexibility issues, especially with not having any money in the bank. Now, with this next draft here, we've gone with a standard 3-4-3 with, pretty much I would call a template style of team. We have a set and forget goalkeeper in Ramsdale. That could easily be McCarthy or Matt Ryan from Brighton, and you can just swap your goalkeeper. Maybe you can do rotating goalkeepers with this strategy here as well if you want both Ryan and McCarthy, because our goalkeepers cost 9 million in total. This is before also Button went to West Brom, so now I'm not sure if he's going to be starting over, I believe his name is Johnston. but we'll have to see how that goes. But this is just any 4 million non-playing goalkeeper. You can go rotation goalkeepers, or you can go a 4.5 set and forget goalkeeper as well. We have some rotation in defense as well. So we have Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's going to start week in, week out. Then we have James Justin. We have Ruben Vinagre. We have Mitchell from Crystal Palace as well as Charlie Taylor from Burnley. So you can rotate between your 4 defenders with Mitchell, Taylor, Vinagre, and Justin, and pick the 2 best for that game week. We have a pretty standard midfield with a mid-price midfielder in Hakim Ziyech. We have Souček in there as our cheaper midfielder, and our 2 premiums with Aubameyang and Mohamed Salah. And then a pretty standard front 3 with Timo Werner being our most premium striker, with Ings as a premium. I call him premium because anyone who's 8.5 or higher, you can consider him a premium forward. And then we have a cheaper striker in that of Mitrovic. Now, what I like about this team over the previous one is that, one, you can just have a set and forget goalkeeper. You know that Sheffield United are probably going to keep, a decent bit of clean sheets. Or even if you have the rotation options with the goalkeepers, you're going to get some clean sheets out of your goalkeepers without having to worry too much about, is my goalkeeper going to keep a clean sheet? Do I have another option there as well? And it's going to be quite solid overall, as well as the flexibility of the defense. So you're going to play Trent in, game out. And James Justin has looked quite good with, them signing, I think his name is Castagne, I think it is. They signed him. I believe he's going to be playing left back, which means Justin will fill in at right back for Pereira, and then will potentially be a rotation option afterwards. So at least you have the first 4 game weeks to, keep Justin in there, where Leicester do have pretty good fixtures, and then you can change him out for somebody else that may emerge later on. The midfield is pretty standard. We have Aubameyang and Salah in there. Those are going to be our captaincy choices for at least the first couple of game weeks. And then Ziyech is a good value option at 8 million with very good fixtures to open the season. And then Souček's just going to be in there as our kind of mainstay. And that's another good thing as well. If, you don't fancy Souček's, fixture versus whoever they're going to be playing, as the West Ham do have a very rough patch to start the season, apart from them opening up against Newcastle at home. You can put in the likes of Mitchell, you can put in Taylor, you can put in these types of players. Even Reed, who does start for Fulham. You can have these sorts of players in there that could potentially pick up more points than Souček would otherwise versus stronger opposition. And then our front 3 makes it pretty flexible as well. If you want to start the season off with Antonio, you can. We have the extra 0.5 million in the bank. You can downgrade Ramsdale as well to a 4.5 like McCarthy, and then that leaves you even 1 million in the bank, to whereas you could potentially upgrade Werner straight up to Kane if you wanted to. You can get Aguero. You can get from Ings to Martial. You can go from Ziyech to the likes of Pulisic or Kai Havertz. I almost forgot his name there. And you can be looking at a bunch of different ways to do it. And even if you squeeze even just a little bit more money out of the team as well, you can go from Ziyech straight to Rashford if you wanted to as well. And the team is very flexible in that regard. Pretty solid for the opening few game weeks, which is what you want out of your starting formation. And I think that it's going to be quite good for the first few game weeks. And I think you should be considering something in this sort of vein. And it's kind of a familiarity with a bunch of teams looking that this is like the template. And it seems like everyone gravitates to a 3-4-3 by the time the season starts. And it's a good reason for it, because on paper this team looks quite solid to open up the season with. Now moving on to another formation that we have here, it's 4-3-3 again, however with a slightly different caveat. We have a bit more money up in the front line. So we have Ryan in goal again. This could be just a 4.5 million goalkeeper of your choice. We have some rotation in defense. We do have 2 4 million defenders. Now Struik, I think is how you can pronounce his name. It can be Ferguson, it can be Douglas from West Ham. But we just note that you do have 2 4 million defenders in this formation. There is 0.5 million in the bank, much like the previous team that we discussed. And you have the same pretty much standard 3 midfielders. So if you wanted to go to St. Maximin, you could as well. But the main talking point here is the front line. We have Jimenez, we have Werner, and we have Harry Kane in here, who a lot of people are actually sleeping on, as it seems like when everyone's fit, Son's going to play pretty wide, Dele Alli's going to play just in behind Kane, and Kane's going to be the one getting into the box and scoring the goals. So he is their talisman player. You know he's going to get 90 minutes every game, assuming he's fit. He's going to be in the race for the Golden Boot as well. And I think that he's being undervalued. The Spurs, people are looking at their defense as well. but their attack can improve if their defense does improve. They brought in Doherty, who's a much better defender than Serge Aurier is, and his delivery is arguably just as good as well. And with Spurs' lopsided formation, you have the likes of Davies, who tucks in to a back three and allows for Son to kind of push the width up on that side. And then you have Dele Alli kind of playing in behind, or Lucas Moura, whoever it may be, in behind Kane. And then you have the likes of, Bergwijn, or you have Lamela cutting inside on the right-hand side. And then you have the likes of Doherty, or in this case, Aurier, going around the outside. And the thing that Doherty does well is he also allows to go on the underlap as well, which Aurier typically just ran down the outside and crossed it in. Doherty's a bit more intelligent in terms of like, knowing when to make those runs. And he's a bit more precise in terms of his delivery. Now, he's just going to have to strike up a communication with, if Lucas Moura plays on that side, it's perfect, because Lucas Moura can go down the outside with his pace, or he can cut inside and look for a pass inward towards Kane or Ali on the edge of the box, or in the box for like a through ball. So I think that Kane could be quite a good value pick. He's also another captaincy option as well, and is quite good for some of those fixtures in the opening, at least 8 for Spurs. And I think that he could be quite a good value pick at 10.5 million. He's quite cheap than what he has been in previous seasons, much like how Aguero is lingering for the City fixtures. 10.5 million. We'll have to see if he starts as well. So I kind of wanted to put one of these drafts in there because of the fact that, people are going to be thinking about Aguero, and the only way you can easily get to them, these types of forwards, is if you have one of those in your team. Just talking on defense a little bit here. So we know that PVA is going to be out for a significant part of the first few weeks at least. So Mitchell's in there. Ferguson, was injured, and he seems to be potentially going to be coming back a couple game weeks in, so potentially keep an eye out for that. But another defender that I want to look at is Walker Peters, who's playing for Southampton, who improved massively after the restart. And I think that he could be could be very good value at 4.5 million. So make sure to keep an eye on him as well. I know a lot of people have McCarthy in their team and potentially looking at Ings, and they also have Armstrong on their radar with Che Adams as well. But I think Walker Peters could provide good value. He's very good going forward. Pretty solid defensively for his age. And I think that Southampton could surprise a lot of teams with a few upsets this season. So make sure to keep an eye out for him if you decide to go with something of this style of formation. Now, it wouldn't be a draft video without having a team in it that has United and City assets on the bench as well. So I've gone with a very interesting one that I've kind of come up with here, kind of playing around. We've gone with a 4.5 million goalkeeper to maximize the value. Again, this team still has 0.5 million in the bank. It is risky, but if it does pay off, and Foden and Fernandes, who are on the bench currently, are starting and they're fit, and they get through all the tests that the players are going to have to go through to make sure that they're able to play in the Premier League without potentially spreading of what's been going on in the world and that sort of stuff, then I think that this could be a very undervalued team. So on paper, it looks kind of weird. It looks kind of like a Christmas tree formation we got going on here. We have all 5 defenders playing, who we know will probably start in their respective roles. So you have Alexander-Arnold. He's definitely going to start. James Justin, who's going to start because Pereira is out for the first few game weeks and won't be back until after the first international break. Ruben Vinagre, they haven't signed a left wing back as far as I know as of yet, so he could be in there at 4.5 million. Saliba, who looked excellent in his first couple of preseason games, so he's in there, 4.5 million. This could also be another 4.5 million defender, and Walker Peters or something like that, who is going to play as well. And then Mitchell, who we know is going to start because Crystal Palace defense is just completely ruined with injuries at the moment, so he's going to be in there as well. Then we have the fantastic 3 in Souček, Aubameyang, and Salah, with Werner and Mitrovic as our forwards. And then you say, okay, well, you have this wonky formation. Well, how does it seamlessly transition into the next game week? Well, you don't even have to make any transfers for that. So what you do is you take the likes of Mitchell, he goes onto the bench, you bring in Foden, and then you take in the likes of either Saliba or Vinagre or Justin, whichever one has the worst fixture. You take them out, put Fernandes in there, and then you go 3-5-2. pretty straightforward there. The only thing that I'm, slightly worried about is that I don't have the flexibility of having that third striker, which, can be a bit of a problem. And if we wanted to get Martial in over Fernandez, then we've kind of locked ourselves in place. But what you would do is just basically take the United asset that you want to keep or have on your bench, and you basically swap it with Fernandez. So if I wanted Martial, I would take Brewster out, put Martial in his place, take Fernandez out, and put in maybe a cheaper midfielder there, or Greenwood, or whoever it may be that you want as your United asset. And I think that Phil Foden is definitely being underrated. $6.5 million for somebody that could see probably at least half the starts in league, I would think, because they brought in Fernan Torres, who's he's a young winger who came in from La Liga, and I think that he has some promise and could see definitely some minutes, but he could also have like the Riyad Mahrez effect as well, where he's just going to be used mainly off the bench, get the occasional start here and there. But I think the formation that they're looking to implement is basically use Foden as the David Silva replacement potentially, even though Foden is a bit more involved when he's played in the front three. But I think that's where the position he will be eventually playing, because they need to fill that void, and they haven't really signed or have a direct replacement in there apart from maybe Gundogan. But he's not as creative as David Silva. Doesn't have as much quality on the ball as David Silva did in his palm. So I think that that's what they may be going for, because I think City's best team on paper is you stick Fernandinho at the base of the defense with Laporte +1 at center back. You have Kyle Walker on one side. You have Mendy when he's fit on the other side, or João Cancelo. And then you have the midfield three, like I said, Fernandinho at the base with De Bruyne +1. You can have Foden kind of playing as like a Metzala type of role on one side, when both him and De Bruyne can kind of get into those half spaces and create in between the lines. And that's where you can kind of see some playmaking action there. Every now and again, maybe De Bruyne drops deep and becomes a deeper lying playmaker, with Foden kind of fitting into more of a 10 role potentially. There's many different ways that Pep can run it. And then obviously their front three, Aguero, Sterling, and Mahrez, those are going to be the best three in the front three, no questions asked. They're just too good not to play, which is why I'm kind of confused as why Pep didn't play Mahrez for the latter half of the restart. It was really weird he wasn't starting him. Maybe he fell out of favor, maybe he was not as fit as what we thought, but he always looks good when he comes off the bench as well. So I think this could potentially be an underrated formation. I'm certainly considering it, and I think you should kind of have a tinker around with this type of formation, to where you can just take your United and City assets, no transfers needed, with a very solid Christmas tree style of formation here for Game Week 1, and then bring in the big guns off the bench going into Game Week 2 onwards. Now with this last draft here, I've gone with a 4-4-2, and I've gone with something a bit more Maverick. We've kept 4.5 million in the bank. That's right, 4.5 million in the bank. That's a whole cheap midfielder when you look at it that way. But we did it for good reason. We're keeping one eye on the Manchester United and Manchester City fixtures. So we've gone with two more expensive defenders and two 4 million defenders as well. And we've just played the four at the back that we know are going to start for the first game week of the season. Mitchell's in there, Doherty, Vinagre, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Vinagre can come out for another defender if we know that there's any inclination that he's not going to start. And then it's, pretty standard up front as well, with a non-playing striker in Brewster. On the bench with Reed as well, and an on-playing goalkeeper. But the midfield is the main talking point here. So we've gone with Armstrong, who's a 5.5 million midfielder. This could be St. Maximin. This could be any 5.5 midfielder. Not really too much there, as long as you pick one that has a decent fixture to open up the season. We also have Aubameyang and Salah, who really don't need any explanations there. Both captaincy options for the first couple of game weeks. As well as Harvey Barnes, who is at 7 million this season, is most likely going to start the season, as Leicester have a bit of trouble in terms of players that are going to be starting the season. So we still have this signs that Maddison is still going to be injured. Pereira is out injured still to at least the international break after game week 4. We also have Johnny Evans, who's suspended, which is why Justin can potentially come in instead of Vinagre if we have some type of notification or whatever that he won't be playing. And Barnes is a very good value pick, at least playing in the first game week. He has West Brom away, very good fixture on paper. West Brom are probably going to be a bit more attacking when at home, much like Fulham. They're a little bit more on the offensive when they are playing at home, and a lot more defensive when they are away, which favors the likes of Leicester, who they can get Harvey Barnes and Jamie Vardy in behind. Now, this is where the 4.5 million comes to the bank, so we can field a pretty solid team in game week 1, and that's where we can make our changes with the value that we have in the bank. So game week 2 comes along, you want to bring in Sterling, bang, you can do it. You can take Harvey Barnes out, put Sterling in straight away. You want to take out Armstrong and put in Rashford? Bang, you can do that right away. You can also take out Harvey Barnes. Bang. You don't think Burnley is a very good fixture, and then they play, I think, City the game week afterwards. You can bring in Bruno Fernandes as well. You can even upgrade Mitrovic all the way up to the most expensive forwards in Sergio Aguero, Harry Kane at 10.5 million with the money that we have in the bank as well. So definitely looking at a very transfer heavy team here, unlike the last one where we kind of kept the players on the bench. But this also allows for us to have a solid formation to start with, and you could potentially still keep these players and just keep the money banked, and potentially if they do well in the first game week, you can see how it goes for the next game week, and so on and so forth. So I think that could be a very good option. Also with the newly priced Kai Havertz and Pulisic waiting to come back in, Armstrong can go straight up to one of those as well. And you could still potentially have a little bit left over to kind of fund other moves. So if we upgraded Armstrong, that would cost us 3 million. We have an additional 1.5. We can put that on Barnes and potentially upgrade him, to potentially like a Riyad Mahrez, who was 8.5. You can upgrade Mitrovic to the likes of Calvert-Lewin if you wanted to. You can upgrade one of your 4 million defenders. So there's a bunch of different things that you could do if you don't decide to go with a United or a City asset there as well. You can even downgrade Barnes to the likes of Phil Foden, and then you'll have 5 million to upgrade Armstrong straight up to Bruno Fernandes. There's many different ways you can go with this formation, and on paper it seems like a pretty solid opener of a 4-4-2 with the maximum amount of flexibility with the 4.5 million in the bank. So that's going to do it for this mock draft review. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. And make sure to turn those notification bells on so that you can get the videos as soon as they are readily available. Also, make sure to check us out over on Twitter and Twitch. It's Pilot Flame 226 on those platforms. We have our mini league up and running, the Flames Recruit. So make sure to check that out. It's in my Twitter bio, as well as the link is also in the description. You have to be following us over on Twitter, and then you can get a shout out at the end of the season, and you'll be in the description of all the videos for the 2021-2022 FPL season. Also, Twitch, is where we'll be doing our game week discussions. So we will be having one this Friday at 7 p.m. EST. That'll be where my big team reveal will be and what I'm thinking about going into the first game week with, and what I'm going to be settled on. As well as on the Saturday, we're going to be doing a deadline stream. We're going to be up an hour before the deadline, whatever that is in your time zone. I know it's super early for me. I'm 1 hour ahead of EST, so make sure to check that out. I'll also leave a pinned tweet down below just for confirmation of that time as well. Also, make sure to leave a comment down below as to what your team's looking like, and maybe some last minute decisions that you're looking to do as well. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, take care.